Welcome, everyone. Welcome to this regular meeting of the Board of Education. It is Monday, March 27th at 6:05 p.m. Let the record show that all board members are present except for Dr. Fagley, but she's joining us through conference call. First thing, would everybody please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, board, before you have an agenda, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second. All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, the agenda is approved. First on the agenda, we have,
We heard Missy. Sorry.
oh, Missy, you there?
Yes.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. All right. First on the agenda, we have recognitions. I'll hand it over to Dr. Glass.
Yeah, I'm pleased to recognize our March Terrific Tigers. Of course, these are students from each of our buildings that have been selected to receive this award based on their service to others, their leadership, and their scholarship. We also want to recognize the parents for their role that they play in their students' education. So as we call each student forward, we ask them to rise and be recognized as well.
Alma Schroeder Elementary, Zatron Penn, third grade son of Kristen and Max Penn. Zatron is such a bright spot at Alma Schroeder. His infectious smile and sweet demeanor is well known around our building. He's been recognized for his great achievements in academics, how helpful he is to students and teachers, and all the hard work he has done in third grade. Alma Schroeder is lucky to have such an amazing student like Zatron. Blanchard Elementary, Cage Ashton Teagart, third grade son of Lisa Deanne and Robert Teagart. Ashton is someone who possesses all of the unique traits of a terrific tiger. He's a role model in the classroom and sets a standard high for his peers. Ashton attends class, follows instructions immediately, takes pride in his work, and strives to do his best, both inside and outside the classroom. He is a true friend and kind-hearted to all those he encounters. Congratulations on such an amazing honor, Ashton. You deserve it. Clifford Elementary, Colby Schoolcraft, fourth grade son of Mindy Jones and John Schoolcraft. Colby is an amazing friend. He's always the first person to make sure everyone has what they need to be successful. He always tries his best on his schoolwork. Colby is well-mannered and respectful to others. He's a great example of a terrific tiger. Congratulations, Colby. We're so proud of you. Franklin Elementary, Kyle McFerrin, second grade son of Patricia Robinson and Keith McFerrin. Kyle is always on task. He is kind and respectful to everyone. He has great attitudes, no matter in media class or cafeteria. He works hard and he treats others with respect and kindness. Kyle consistently chooses to do the right thing. He's a role model of his behavior and he works hard on classwork. He's all around a terrific tiger. Jefferson Elementary, Nathan Husky, pre-K son of Miranda and Jack Husky. Nathan's teachers are so proud of him and everything he's accomplishes here. Nathan is learning and growing by leaps and bounds. He is smart, creative, a hard worker, and so kind and helpful. Nathan is a joy to have in class. Congratulations and keep up the great work, Nathan. Central Middle School, Cleona Fly, fifth grade daughter of Anitra Fly.
Could he get any cuter?
Oh, I guess she's not here. Great. Terry W. Kitchen Junior High, Tobias Wade, seventh grade son of Heather Wade. Tobias is an incredibly hard-working, courteous, and respectful. He's quick to assist his classmates when they need help, and he treats every adult in the building with respect. Tobias strives to excel in all aspects of what it means to be a good person and a good student. Congratulations, Tobias. Central High School, Madison Morris, 12th grade daughter of Melissa Barnhart and Keith Morris.
She had an obligation, but she's really grateful.
No, cool. Thank you, sir. Okay. Central Academy, Demarius Tate Sproles, 9th grade son of Carol Whitehead. For February, Franklin Elementary, Stephen Volker, 2nd grade son of Jessica May and Jeremy Volker. Then we have Central Academy, Ayana Fleming, 12th grade daughter of Tiana Fleming. That's all that's on the list.
All right, let's line up here for a big picture, okay?
Good energy tonight.
Right here, right in the straight lines.
This is great. You want to get some of these other people here? Some of these people here this month, back next month? We just provide dinner or something for them.
Okay, if everybody give me a big smile this way.
He's huge. Could we get some more really cute little guys?
Perfect.
He's really cute.
All right, big smile.
Like he is bringing up the value of that entire convention.
I'll move out of the way for everybody else.
Good call getting on the thing. I like this energy tonight. Can we get some of these people back in here again next month?
That's hilarious.
He was tall. And look, we need some more of that little cute guy too, because he increased the value of that whole group picture. We need another really tall guy and another little bit EV. Look at him, he's so cute, so proud.
That makes your day every time you go.
It really does. You can't help it. I don't know if I like the little bitty guy or the biggest one the best. I know. That was fun.
Well, next up, we have, March is always our Board Member Appreciation Month, and I'd just like to take a moment and thank these board members for all they do for this district. And they do it for the love of this district. They don't do it out of any kind of, or getting paid for it. I mean, it's a way for them to give back to this community, and I can't speak highly enough of this board. These public servants invest a number of hours each month helping us create a stronger school community. We are thankful to each and every one of you for all you do. At this time, on behalf of all of us here at Cape Girardeau Public Schools, I would like to thank you for investing your time and talents into public education. It is every single child's right to have access to a high-quality education, and every time you sit on this board, you make these decisions for our district. You're ensuring that all students are granted that right. We could not do this without you, so thank you all very much for all you do, and it's been my pleasure working with each and every one of you. You do have a couple certificates at your seat. I think one's MSBA. The governor signed a proclamation for school board members. And there's one other one too, I believe. Oh, from John Voss, Representative John Voss. Again, thank you all very much.
Thank you. All right, next on the agenda, we have information proposals or comments from the audience. I believe we have a couple of presentations set up. Beth, do you?
Well, Miss Geneva, did you? Oh.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Okay, Dr. Glass, Superintendent, and Dr. Binion, I call Superintendent-elect, board members, and everyone present. And my name is Geneva Binion Allen Patterson. Somebody introduced me yesterday, and they used my maiden name of Binion. So since we have another Binion, I thought I would use that today. But anyway, in Micah 6 and 8, from the Message Bible, it says, "But he's already made it plain how to live, what to do, what God is looking for in men and women. It's quite simple. Do what is fair and just to your neighbor. Be compassionate and loyal in your love to one another. And don't take yourself too seriously. Take God seriously." Verse 9 says, this is serious business. I come up to appeal to the Cape Girardeau School District to investigate and address, and also to share the findings, what I feel are disparities in our school system. And I feel that because of these disparities, and knowing that a voice has to be heard to seek justice and kindness, I'm willing to be that vessel to speak for justice. On behalf of the children and of staff members, and I didn't have time to investigate the stats, so I don't have the exact numbers. I know that they are in the school records or in the school system. The first disparity that I would like investigated, why with such a low percentage of minority students attending the Cape Girardeau Public Schools, that there are what I feel a disproportionate amount of them have been placed in alternative schools. And I would like to know, where is the disconnect? If anybody is investigating with the low minority rate, why the rate is so high in the alternative schools. Where is the failure there? The next disparity that I see is the low minority proportion of staff compared to probably what I feel is a large amount of corrective action and dismissals from the school system. Has anyone investigated this or researched why this is happening? Where is the justice? I can say even myself as an employee of the Cape Girardeau school system, I feel that some unfair comments were made even when my rating was done. I did address it on the rating, but I felt it was unfair because it was never brought to my attention before the rating was done. So I'm asking that the board members investigate both of these areas to determine if justice is being served, because it says that when we've done it to the least of them, we've done it to all of us. And also that we are our brother, our sisters, our children's keeper. They're our brother, our sister, and our children. And as I leave, I would just like to offer special prayers today for the victims of the mass school shooting today in Nashville, Tennessee. So if we would keep those families in our prayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth, was there anyone else that?
Justin Kane.
Justin Kane, Mr. Kane.
My name's Justin Kane. I'm proud to be the father of Xander Kane. He is a 8th grader at the junior high school. He is a second-year member of the esports team, and I was asked to come and kind of let you guys know a little bit about the esports team and how it has benefited my son. I love him to death. He's not an athletic kid. He follows after me a little bit in that way. Coach Crowell, you can verify that. But this is giving him an opportunity through esports to still be able to compete and to let his talents be shown. He is super involved in his scout troop. As a matter of fact, as soon as I get done speaking, we are going to be jetting out of here and just right over here to Grace Methodist, where he is a patrol leader in Troop 2. And so he brings some of that leadership qualities that he's getting through scouts into the esports. Last year, he was recognized by one of his coaches as the kid that liked to stick around and cheer on his teammates and would pick his teammates' brains and try to practice with them. He likes to, and I have a bit of a qualm trying to figure out how to justify this. He likes to come home and practice. But he's really good about making sure that his home practicing doesn't interfere with his schoolwork. Because of the fact that this is a recognized sport, he still has to keep up the academic side of it. So it's an incentive for him to make sure that he doesn't let those grades slip. Whereas, a lot of times whenever I was in school and we didn't have this, if you weren't on a sports team, weren't in the band, you didn't really have, you wanted to pass, but you didn't really have that incentive that I'm going to lose something I enjoy. So it gives him that, and then he's made a lot of friends. There are kids that he wouldn't have normally associated with. He doesn't have a whole lot else in common with, but they're on the esports team together. They're comrades. They get to do things together, and they're there fighting those internet online battles together. He has gotten to go and participate in a tournament in St. Louis. He's gone up to the SEMO Esports Arena a couple times with the esports team and has actually gotten to compete against some of the college kids, which he came home just blowing up about. He was super excited. And I was chatting with him on the way over here. He fully plans on trying out for the team next year once he gets to the high school and continuing on with this. So it's just one of those, I wanted to kind of let you guys as the board know that, we do have this thing in here. It's it's great. Like I said, I wasn't a super athletic kid. And if we'd had something like this when I was in school, I know where I would have been. So just wanting to throw that out there, keeping that in your guys' radar so that you guys can keep an eye on it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I believe that was it, wasn't it, Beth? All right. Next, we have board president's report, and I'll have one this time. And as they say, time flies when you're having fun, and tonight marks the 12th regular meeting for this specific group of board members. And I want to take the opportunity to thank all the board members for their commitment and dedication to the district. Also wanted to thank you for the opportunity to represent and serve this board and this group as the president for the past year. We have an election coming up, and with elections, there's potential for change. I wish the best for all candidates involved in the upcoming election, and regardless of the outcome, I'm confident that the district will continue to make steps to improve, and I'm very proud to be a part of the successes. So, just like all of you are. That being said, it's been an honor, and I thank you all. And I'll turn it over to you for your report, Dr. Glass.
Well said. I would echo Geneva's comments on Nashville. It's a tragedy that is administrators, communities' worst nightmares. Our hearts, our thoughts, our hearts, and our prayers extend to Nashville as they deal with this tragedy. As far as superintendent report goes, I am excited to share with everyone that one of our superstars at CHS, Ms. Nita Dubois, was recognized by the Missouri Association of Student Councils as the Advisor of the Year. To me, what makes this award so special is that it is one that is awarded by students. Any of us who know Ms. Dubois know how hard she works at making meaningful connections with students, and she will always tell you, anytime you talk to her, how much she absolutely loves her job. We're so proud of her and want to congratulate her on this award. So I know she's not here, but give a round of applause to Ms. Dubois. Other great news out of the high school, our orchestra students performed in the New Orleans Heritage Festival, earning a gold rating, which is the highest they could receive. Not only did the team take home second place, but they also received the Spirit Award for having the most respectful and polite group throughout the festival. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, go ahead, give it up. Our orchestra was also one of two to be invited to perform in a more competitive festival next year, where some of the top musicians in the world will be the judges. Congratulations, Tigers, on that outstanding accomplishment. Next month, we will have two of our high school seniors joining us as they have been recognized for the Missouri Scholars 100. Sam Cairns and Henry Rustin have been named to the prestigious list of honorees. We look forward to seeing them next month. You know one of those guys, don't you, Paul?
I do know.
Congratulations. We received a large donation of shoes recently from the group Shoes from the Heart. We always appreciate support for our students, as there is a great need in our community. I did not want this donation to go unnoticed, and so thank you to them too. And that's all I've got.
Very good. Thank you. Next up, we have program evaluations, library and media resources. Dr. Benny?
Yep.
Oh,
Yes,
that's not all I had. Oh, wait, I retract that. I'm sorry, Ms. McKinley. I had you here to present too during my section.
Yes.
So it's you. You have the floor.
Well, we won an award, or we were notified by they forgot to give us, and that was the
I heard about this.
2022 JAG Missouri Commercial of the Year Award. We weren't at CDC last year, so they put the plaque in a box. And they didn't give it until they were unpacking for this year. And then they called to ask me, did you get it? And I said, no, I didn't think we won. We have your plaque. So we'll get it this year.
That's outstanding.
If you want us to present, we'll just take a few minutes. Is there anything?
Yes, the floor is yours. Yep, it's your time.
Great. Good evening. My name is Robin McKinley, and I am the JAG Specialist at Central Academy. If this is the first time you are hearing about JAG, where have you been? Jobs for America's Graduates is a matching grant-based program, and it's in its third year at Central Academy. Students learn through project-based learning. They learn employability skills, communication skills, life skills, and learn how to succeed after graduation. Students that graduate from the program receive 12 months of follow-up after graduation. And this is a key part to this program. So many times, as soon as the kids graduate, we lose touch with them. I don't. At least one contact a month. A lot of them, it's 2 or 3. Hey, I lost a job. Can you help me fill out a job application? Or can you help me arrange daycare? My car's broken. Where do I take it? Just regular daily life things that there might not be a parent or a trusted adult that they can go to. And although we only follow them for 12 months, I still have my seniors that graduated 3 years ago coming in all the time asking for the same thing. So we know they need a little more help getting out there and adulting. This year in JAG, students have field trip pretty much everywhere. We've been to Build My Future and the Leadership Retreat, which was my favorite because we got to use the zip lines and the ropes course. We did the SEMO Food Bank, and last week we did the National Guard Armory, which I think was probably all the male students' favorite field trip this year. And I'll let Azariante tell you about that. We host gingerbread house building competitions because it's team building. And it's funny because the first year, we sort of had the teams that were friends, and they realized that sometimes your friends are not good team members. And so they watched the other houses going up that first year, and we had totally different teams this year, and it was amazing. Some of these gingerbread houses, the kids should be engineers. They were phenomenal. We last term finished up skills to pay the bills, which we took it a little bit farther than we should with budgeting, because I found out a lot of our kids are really lacking the priorities of budgeting. You know, if you have X amount of dollars, what is the first bill you need to pay? My boys would say, my car note. And I said, well, unless you plan to live in your car, it might need to be your rent. But even when we have those times when we have kids who say, I can't find something within my rent, then we talk about what resources are out there to help them maybe find housing that's in their budget, or they may have to take in a roommate. And we throw out different scenarios. You know, let's say you have your grocery list purchased and your car breaks down. You have to decide between getting your car fixed and buying groceries. If you don't get your car fixed, you can't get to work, you lose your job, then how are you going to buy your groceries? So we take a lot of those scenarios into play, and it was frustrating more than anything for my kids, because they had to do a line items budget, and if they could finish at the end with even $1, I was excited. If not, they had to find a part-time job. So it's learning those life skills and being able to make those mistakes while they're still in high school and they're not out where they have no help. The Career Association, which is a part of JAG, next week will be taking 4 students to the state capitol. We have a student, Brandon Peltz, which has already made it to the second round of career prep. Janavia Fly is taking financial literacy. Ayana Fleming is doing employability skills. Alyssa Shuffett is presenting for our NCAA Chapter of the Year. And then all the competitors will compete in the critical thinking and problem solving. But our program, even though we're young, just our 3rd year, is no stranger to awards. Central Academy JAG holds both state and national awards, from the 100% Contact Award for senior follow-ups, the Missouri and National highest full-time placement, the highest number of barriers, which I have to explain is like an award, but it's not an award. We not only hold the state, the number of barriers that our students at Central Academy have to overcome to graduate from high school. We not only hold the state record, we hold the national record. And that's 29.5 barriers. And I don't go looking for barriers. They're just easy to check off. And I mean, they can range from they're a first-generation college student to they have lived in foster care, or they're part of the juvenile system, or free and reduced lunch. It's a barrier list. And when you start adding up those barriers, it becomes increasingly more difficult for those kids to graduate, because some of them may be working jobs to help pay bills, or they don't have transportation, or they don't have the internet at their house, so it's difficult for them to finish work. So to say that's an award for us, it's an award that we have almost 100% graduation rate from our JAG program. We one year had one student that didn't graduate, but we're on that 100% streak right now. So Azariante is going to tell you a little bit about what we do in JAG. He has been a member, this is his 3rd year. He's a senior, graduating a year early. So
my freshman year, I kind of struggled a little bit with school until JAG kind of came around. And I've known Miss McKinley for a very long time. So she had talked me into it, and I had got the class, and I really learned a lot with that class. It teaches you more than just learning about like the outside world. You get friends while you're in JAG. It shows you a lot about the outside world and about what you should do and things that you should, like routes that you should go about it. And it's really good to have that type of program around for kids who don't have like a lot of leadway with anything, because it shows you a lot of routes of going that way. I got my first job with JAG. Ms. McKinley helped me out a lot with it, and it teaches you a lot about like getting your taxes. I've learned getting my taxes with it, how to do my taxes, what I should know about check stubs.
That's very important, how to read your own check stub.
It taught me a lot about how to calculate with check stubs and making sure my money's not wrong, or if I do have misplaced money, how to go about the situation. and learn how to come instead of being rude about a situation that could be easily fixed.
And I think that's the biggest, with me, and I'm probably going to choke up, to watch Azariante from the time I've known him, especially in high school to now, to watch the maturity and watch him before he starts to do something. He's got that, okay, now wait a minute. We've gone over this, and we do a lot of role playing, and if they make a mistake in class, and it's all about learning. You can make all the mistakes you want to, but we're going to talk about what could we have done wrong, what could we have maybe put into place so this didn't happen, and watching him mature and flourish. And I mean, he struggles every now and then, but he pulls it together really fast, and that's what it's about. And I know that Azariante, he's going to go out there and make his mark on the world, and hopefully he'll keep in touch after 1 year. But if you have any questions about JAG, or if you want to be a guest speaker or come in my room, if your name is Chris Collier, he will tell you we have one of the noisiest rooms in the school. But when you do project-based learning, it's not sitting down and it's not researching. Right now, they're making vision boards. Mr. Ritter was so inspirational when he was a guest speaker about if you do not see it in front of you, if you have a goal and it's not written down, the chances of you meeting that goal are next to nothing. And so I had my kids write 3 SMART goals, and they're doing vision boards about those goals so they can put them up in their house, because they have to learn that it's okay to set goals, but we really need to work to reach them. So I thank you all for giving us the opportunity, because JAG to me is a game changer. This is a program I've been looking for all of my years of teaching. It's phenomenal.
I need you to teach my college kids about taxes and pay stubs and all that stuff. If y'all could set up a little program, that'd be great.
My kids could teach you about pay stubs, because we drill it into them every year, because they don't, half of them, they don't know where to find their pay stubs. I mean, they're all on an app that I'm like, have you never read your pay stub? No. You don't know being paid right. I have no idea. Yeah. But hey, we can do that easily. So, if you have any questions, Azariante or I will answer any questions.
I want to just say one thing. You knew I was going to say something, Ms. McKenna. She's a blessing, I'll tell you that. But one thing is, she's not telling you the first year that they started the program, they were winning state awards and national awards because of her due diligence and really implementing that program well. Great job.
Once you find a job that you're passionate about and you love, and I love these kids, I've always taught challenging kids, and to find kids, and the ones that you, like at the beginning they act like they're not going to give you anything, but at the end they're giving you 110%. That's the payoff. I always tell them, if you grow up and you become a rocket scientist, great, but if you grow up and you're happy and you have a family and you live in a safe area, I'm just as proud as you if you were a rocket scientist. It's not the money, it's the happiness. So it's a phenomenal program. So we're over here at Central Academy. Stop on by anytime. And I can't promise it'll be quiet, but you will be entertained for sure. Dr. Binion's been entertained several times. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome.
It's a great program.
Well,
Next week we're headed to Florida.
all right. Good luck.
Good luck.
All right, we'll go back to Dr. Binion for the library and media resources.
Yes, in front of you, you have the program information. I blew mine up so I could see it a little bit better. This is for our K-12 library media program. This is done biannually, so every other year we do this evaluation. Just an overview of the program is the cost of the program is roughly between staff and materials is about $797,000 and $797,000 roughly, and then we are switching over to our MSIP 6 standards,
which you can see this falls underneath L7. The local board administrators ensure the use of an effective evaluation process for all employees and systematic program evaluation processes for school system programs, practices, and procedures. So we are changing some of the standards within this, and some of these standards will be addressed in our CSIP as well. Just some strengths of our program. We are continuing to be one-to-one, and the libraries use that to their advantage, especially when they're doing classes in their library. They are working with their teachers. We have full-time librarians at every school and library assistants at every school. Library media specialists effectively manage the library collection. One of the things that we are using is the Follett program, and it actually can review those books titles that we have in our libraries. The librarians check that on a regular basis. You know, with the new law that came out from last year, they are continuing to check those libraries on a regular basis. Books or those type of titles, they review those and then determine whether they need to keep them in the library. And then sometimes it's a system, so sometimes things get through. So if there are things, there is a process and procedure policy that we have in our district that we just follow. The first step is going to the principal and having that conversation with them. But you're welcome to do that. We also have a large collection of audiobooks and ebooks. That's something new that we've really been pushing for our students since we are one-to-one. Just some concerns. We need more maker spaces. If you've been to Jefferson Elementary, they actually, when they added on, they actually created a maker space for them, which is wonderful for our kids to go in and do some different things with technology in our maker spaces. So they would like to have more of those within our libraries as well, so that they can actually supervise that. Again, we always have limited library space in some elementary schools, but that's just, we can't grow bigger classrooms, unfortunately. Increase the number of online database and programs used in the library, and then continue to update and replace outdated, damaged materials. That's done every year, so it costs us funds to make sure that we replace those books as well. Just our program goals are develop and implement programs to increase digital literacy and digital citizenship. That was one of our CSIP goals from our previous CSIP. We would like to continue to work with our community and actually work with our individual buildings as well for digital citizenship. As we all know, sometimes we don't use our technology well. Our kids use their technology very well. Increase the number of maker spaces and tinkering spaces in the district. Increase student research skills. Increase the use of library by all departments in the school building, and then to continue just to support the teachers and students the best that we can in those programs. Does anyone have any questions? I think our library media is doing a great job.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, next we have our academic services report. If we have one.
Are you going to do the? Are you going to do that? Sorry, let's do that underneath this one if you can. We're going to do our APR under this one. We're going to show you some data in regards to that. If you'll look at your handout that Jamie created for you, he's going to use this as your tool.
You want to start?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Where's all my batteries at?
The first page that you have there while he's getting his battery together, the first page on there is just our overview of our APR report. Realize this is our baseline because we just started using the MSIP 6 standards this year, so this will be our baseline data. In order for us to get good, accurate data, it's over 3-year time, so they do a rolling average. So this is our first year, so this is our baseline data for the state, from the state.
Yeah, and so what you guys see here, this is the same recreation of the same report that the state gives on the DESE website, and so all of this is publicly available data. And so if you guys want to, feel free to jump on there, and we can share links with you if you want. And then some of this data too, we're probably going to try to push to a public site because it's valuable data for everybody. And so you can see here we've got with this new report, you've got two main areas. You got continuous improvement and performance. And you can see our points possible and our points earned. Below that, then you've got our performance totals. So that's usually based around our EOC and MAP scores. And then below that, there's kind of a new breakdown of how that looks. And so up here at the top, you have academic status, and then below that, academic growth. And so it's kind of confusing a little bit when you first start looking at it, but you've got status on the top, and then kind of how well you grow is also factored into it from year to year. And then just below that, we've got some other characteristics for performance, and those are advanced credit, and then college and career-ready assessments, and then our graduate follow-up and our 5-year graduation rate. And so you can see where we've scored on that. And we've got some, here in just a second, I'll share with you some of our a little bit more refined goals on that and kind of where we're at on the academic status and academic growth. Down here at the bottom, you can see a couple places where we're missing some points here on Success Ready Students. CCR assessments is one of them, and we found out that there was a reporting error on our end in getting data into the system. And so we already know kind of where those points are going to come up for next year, and are ready to go ahead and count those points for next year because it's. Go ahead.
So one of the things that the reason why this is so good for us to get this data up front is now we can actually look at how we're measuring each individual criteria. And one of the things that they changed from MSIP 5 to MSIP 6 is the point value system. And so which benefits, and it's a better and more accurate way to measure whether a district is doing well because you can monitor the progress easier. So previously in MSIP 5, it was on a point scale system of 1 is below basic, 3 is basic, 4 is proficient, and 5 is advanced. Now they've changed the way they measure things so that you can get additional points. So depending on how well you do on your assessment, you have a scale of a 1 to a 2.9. So a student could be getting a 2 or a 2.5 now for point value, which will help us increase our scores, our MPI scores, which in turn will help us be more accurate of where we are with students academically. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it just gives us a more granular view. You can put a kid where they're at rather than just put them in 4 boats.
Big scale.
And a kid can know a whole lot more, being on that edge than he is at the bottom of that scale, and give them their scores kind of based off of that. And so it's more fair in that sense. You can see on graduation rate and graduation follow-up rate, we did pretty good. The second large chunk here is our continuous improvement totals, and you can see we're doing pretty good there. There's a couple places attendance we're still trying to dig into and figure out.
I think it was because of our waiver last year. Last year we had a waiver for attendance, didn't we, Beth? Is that the point system for it? You don't know? Yeah.
Okay. So. Going forward, we know what to make sure on reporting there, but we're 100% the rest of the way except for that single point value. And so what I also wanted to share with you is kind of on a district level where we're at on the academic side. So here we've got our 4 main areas. They split them into all student groups and then kind of a main overall subgroup. And so that could be minority status, free and reduced status, could be, have students with IEPs. We don't know exactly which student group they chose for us necessarily, but we can kind of see where we're at. And so in the new language, target status used to be, in the old one used to be real bad. It's the top one now. So be ready to be confused by that. And so, and then kind of your, that would be your advanced. You guys are flying high, you're doing way better. Kind of our if we're to compare it to, like a MAP score, on track would be proficient, and so kind of on grade level. And so this is where they want us to be here and above, the state does. And so this is how far away we are when in those score breakdowns from that. And so we've got some pretty good, we've got a pretty good launching point, especially on ELA. We are less than 1% from that goal already. And so we're having conversations around that. Same thing with, both on our subgroups here. Social studies is flying high. Math and science, everybody's struggling with. If you look at the scores across the board, this is a statewide issue. I saw on CBS News this morning across the nation, something like only 40% of kids get basic skills in math. And so this is a massive nationwide issue. And so, we're this next year, K4, implementing a new curriculum. That'd be, I guess,
6-12 have already implemented them.
And they're doing that this year. And so, refocusing this year already. And so we're looking forward to see how the scores come out this year for that. And then science, we've got some work to do ahead of us. And so, again, all obtainable goals to get up to on-track status, though. I mean, we're not crazy far behind on those as district-wide as a whole. And so, it's great that they give us this report card, really, for us, but it doesn't really show us kind of where we're at. It's one thing to get your report card as a student, and once you get to high school, everybody's worried about where they're at, in the class rankings and all that. And so, what I wanted to do is kind of break it down and show you guys where we're at in the state. And so here, instead of giving you guys big long lists of all of the data in the state, which I can give you if you want, I wanted to throw it on, the bell curve. As in education, we talk about that bell curve all the time and where we're at. And we are right smack dab at the top, in the middle of that bell curve as a state, in relation to the other schools in the state. And so, but we're competing with schools like, Webster Groves, West Platte, all the way to, you've got St. Louis City over here. And so what I wanted to show you is where we're at. We're schools that look like us. And so if I limit this, and try that again. I've only been working on this all day. There we go. And so when we look at schools that are over 3,000, again, still kind of in the middle, but we are not like those schools either at the same time. And so if we kind of further refine that to schools that have over 75% free and reduced lunch, whereas we're at 100%, we're outperforming all of the school districts that look like us. And so
in the state.
In the state, statewide. And so, we're, like I said, we're smack dab in the middle, but we're also, on top of some certain groups. And so I wanted to make that point because, there's a lot of data here to go through. But, compared to other schools that look like us in the state, we're doing pretty good. Even though we've got some work to do.
Who are some of those districts, Jamie, if you hovered over those?
Sure. Absolutely. Other school districts that are over 75% and over 3,000. Kansas City, Sykeston, Rittner, Ferguson Fluorescent, St. Louis City, Riverview Gardens, and Hickman Mills that are that large and in that free and reduced lunch. And so other ways to look at this too is kind of where we're at in comparison to the schools around us. And so there's a couple of different places that I want to look. And that is here in our region. These are all the schools in the southeast region. You can kind of see where we're at and kind of where they've all scored. And then the highlighted one there is Cape. Poplar Bluff, who are, less than 1,000 above us. And so right here in the same group with us, as you guys can see on the last part of the handout there, that's our entire area. And so, but this is that same data on this graph here. And so you can kind of see Jackson's right there with us. They're less than, they're right at, what is it? I think it's 1 point ahead of us, which in percents is, we're in the same grade as Jackson. We've got the top school in the area is Orion, and then you got all the way down some of our other schools here, down here in the bottom. And so we're all over the place here in the area when you look at it that way. And then here is kind of where we're at Cape County, which is always interesting to look at because those back to the full state level here. And you can see Cape County schools there in yellow, and then us in orange. And so, our whole state, we're all dealing with the same issues. We're all dealing with the same problems, and especially when it comes to academics. And so, wanted you guys to see kind of where we're at, and try to give you a bird's eye view of all of this while trying to give you guys good access to the same data. And so, I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions, and probably lots of time to think about it, and you'll come up with other questions later. But
do they define what the student groups consist of at some point in time? Maybe.
Guys, have you seen anything about that?
Well, some of our student groups are going to be, if we have a high special ed population, some of these other groups, that's how they're going to determine that, whether it's our ethnicity.
So it's defined by the district, not by...
No, and it has to have, that's how the groups are defined. So it depends, and then they'll measure on those specific groups. Did you
I
want to
think
say?
he means up there where it said student group and there were 3, and
Yeah.
you said we don't know which.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
on the
yes,
first-
I'm
on the
sorry,
first
I
page.
misunderstood
Yeah,
you.
on the first page.
I'm sorry, I was...
Student groups.
Do they ever tell us who they picked, or do we just get to guess?
That one's new. Yeah, we will have to figure out.
We
what
don't know.
kind of-
We'll have to
because
figure that one out.
We
the
get
subgroups.
tons of student groups whenever they give us kind of the breakdown of the scores, and I mean there's for every type of breakdown of what they want to know, whether or not a kid's ELL or certain ethnic and race subgroups, and like I said, IEPs, homeless, like tons of them. So we don't. We don't know for sure yet.
And I couldn't find it in our...
So we may never know.
Well, they need to tell us so that's how you can go.
It's a mystery.
It was not in the MSIP SIC. I did not find it in the MSIP
It's
SIC.
the first year for them too.
That sounds
Yes.
like a fun
So, question about our MPI score. Now, on the state level, you'll see that data here broken out. So, the MPI score is a really, really, really complex, like 8 or 9 step performance indicator based off of how kids scored, and versus the average in the building, versus the overall expectations of the state.
And that's how they take the point system that I was talking to you
Yep.
about. Now we have an opportunity, even if they're below basic, they can get up to 2.9 points, and then they calculate the MPI scores based on that. But it's a formula that they run it through in order to get that.
I ran it on our
overall
students, and it did not
MPI
match,
score.
so I'm not sure how they.
Is this, I'm sorry,
how they
this
did
is
it.
an ignorant question, but is this based on map testing? Okay.
Yeah.
So
And you
these
get
are
certain
from-
points for below basic,
And
basic
DOCs, yeah.
So this is the information from last
last year.
spring?
Yes,
Okay.
that came out on March 7th.
Perfect.
This is 21, 22.
We hope that it comes out
Yeah,
earlier
perfect.
so that we can use it a
So
little bit
from-
differently for our CSIP.
From 11 months
So-
ago.
That's official on the record, Beth. We want that.
We're going to be using the Galileo as one of our assessment tools K through 12 next year. Currently, we use it K through 8. That's a good question.
I think the nice thing about that will be, I think our plan is that as we get closer to real-time information, it's good not only for benchmarking, but good to say, here are the areas that you're deficient in or excelling in, and we need to go focus additional efforts accordingly.
And so what Jamie has created, he's created a year-over-year data, but we have some data missing because of 2020. We don't have any we don't have state data for that year. But we do have good raw data that we can look at and actually see where we're low at K through 12 in certain content areas and certain skill areas as well. So it's important data, but it's our, I want to go back, I don't want to keep using the word umbrella because we're using an umbrella as our graduate program, but it's an umbrella of seeing how we are doing as a district level. The MAP and EOC data should be used as an umbrella where we're at, and then where can we look year over year to see where our weak areas are and what resources we need to put into those weak areas. And that's really, because we get our data so late, is the best way to use it currently. If we start getting our data earlier, that's a different story. But for right now, it's better for us to use real-time data like our Galileo, what you were talking about.
Do we have the ability through any of our testing to look, I mean, I know right now we look at this and it says district-wide, so this we go down, maybe not here specifically for the purpose of this, to the building level, and then to even like the classroom level?
We have all of that.
And I guess I wonder as we think through, you know, as we have curriculum that exists across all these different buildings or all these different grade levels, if there's a certain teacher who consistently kind of achieves, are there things we can learn from that? If that group always has high scores, there's something that person's likely doing different, where there's some best practices and opportunities to kind of continue to sharpen the saw.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, you know, going forward, we've got making sure, especially with CSEP coming up, you know, and those new overall goals, and then the building goals connected to that. I mean, those are all going to be connected inside of there.
And Paul, that's going to be part of that. That's part of that reorganization that we did, so that we can have actually live people in the classrooms working with the teachers too. Yeah.
Any other questions?
It's good stuff. Any other questions? Not at the moment. Appreciate it. Next on the agenda, we have the CTA report.
But I can talk. We got teachers' voices, right? Here you go. All right, so we have a few staff and building shout outs that I'm going to read off to you, if you wouldn't mind to take it. So, Laura John and Chelsea Gillen, this is at Blanchard, they wanted to get a shout out. They had organized the chili supper and the silent auction for the school. Lindsay Parker is working hard and gathering snacks for MAP testing. Bethany Phelps at Blanchard also wanted to give a shout out to her for always being kind and willing to meet the needs of our students no matter what it takes. At Central Academy, a huge thanks to our custodian, Miss Leslie, for always keeping our building and the board office looking amazing and being great with our students. Miss McKinley, as you got to see the great work she's doing, taking groups of students to see colleges, career centers, teaching about career readiness. Obviously, she's involved in JAG and has been amazing opening doors to students for future success outside of school. At the CTC, they wanted to give a shout out to Miss Kara Dernberger. She's embedded as the ELA instructor. Last week, during a 4-day period, the campus hosted 95 community members for the annual mock interviews. And those community members represented local industry and helped provide a tremendous learning experience for the students. It says here in total, their students took part in 585 different interviews, so it's pretty impressive. She coordinated this entire event, which ultimately is a culmination of each student's work this year in her course. She and her leadership, obviously, does a lot behind the scenes, and the effort certainly doesn't go unnoticed. So I guess there was 12 sending school students is what that came from. At the high school, Ms. Strothman and Ms. Nathan for all their hard work for setting up the career and trade fair. The companies bragged about the kids, and one of the companies got 100 work applications from students, so very impressive. At the middle school, Mr. V for getting things ready for the talent show. A couple other things I was going to share with the board is we had 4 district employees get to attend. They have a regional capital day that MSTA gets to go to. And so Chris Lacey from Clippard, Cecily Masters from Blanchard, Rachel Bentloggy from Jefferson, and Shannon Burkoff from Blanchard went to, and that was in March 8th. And so they actually coordinated meeting with the different representatives and had some good conversations. Hopefully, again, doing the good fight we're trying to do to help Missouri public schools. One thing, I personally just came back from a conference in Atlanta. I went to the National Science Teachers Association conference, so I want to thank the board for getting the opportunity to go. I actually went there and presented, because I'm located in Jefferson, so we are building our STREAM and PBL models. So Dr. Trudy Giassi and Dr. Brantley Hepler, we work with through CMO, and so we had two different sessions that we presented on at this conference. One of them was about the three-dimensional learning, and then the other one was program professional development. We are integrating for science and engineering practices our problem-based learning and authentic STEM experiences. So as you know, my role, I'm moving out of the classroom, moving into a STREAM coach for Jefferson. So I'm looking forward to taking the practices that I learned over the conference and implementing them as we move forward in our practices at Jefferson. So I was really excited and had the opportunity to go. Lots of ideas, of course. Now it's just figuring out how can we continue to make ourselves known and do the good work that we're trying to do. So did any of you guys have any questions for us, CTA or me? All right. Well, I thank you guys for your time, and I appreciate. I've got to head out. Our executive director for MSTA is hosting a dinner here in town, so that is where I'm headed to enjoy a night's supper. So thank you all for your time. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you. Thanks, Todd. Next, we have instructional technology update.
You guys have heard enough from me.
Okay. Support services report.
Treasurer.
Did I miss the treasurer?
No, she's got orders. She looked it up.
I'm just looking at the agenda on the screen.
Oh.
He's doing a good job reading. So a few project updates, Red Star and the transition of that being our new Central Academy. We've got demolition work that's going on there currently now, so if you drive by, you'll see activity there. April 6th, we'll be pushing out this information very soon to the public, but with Jefferson Community Center and that portion opening up, that's coming up soon. Today we had, I think, a very good response from our district and our buildings due to an issue that was ongoing from some of our schools, and our processes kicked in, and we held some kids at the schools, and then buses got released a little bit later once the community was secure. We didn't want kids walking home from bus stops to their homes because of what was going on. So all in all, everything is operating along, and things are happening. So if you have other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Has the water slide been used yet?
Dude, look at Dr. Glass. I would not say that. I would not say that I've used it.
There was a test, but it was like a weighted sled that went down. So.
What was it weighted with? Was it weighted with Dr. Glass?
Yeah, what kind of information have we gathered so far in terms of estimates on Central Academy, in terms of what we're going to do after we get past demolition and kind of phase
We're
approach?
actually going through that right now. We're looking at various different costs. We've been meeting with architects and design companies, and not design companies, but architectural firms and various different companies. We're going through what are the most cost-efficient HVAC system to retrofit it, looking at different types of windows. Taking some out, so it's cheaper to fill some things in. If you look at like the sanctuary, they've got roughly 22-foot tall windows. We don't need 20-foot tall windows in there, so we'll be boarding some of that up, blending it into the exterior, and then smaller windows. Looking at different flooring samples, things of that nature. So we're still in that gathering process where we're getting all that information. From a kitchen standpoint, we have equipment that we had pulled out of the Jefferson renovation and the Elmer Schroeder renovation that we can reuse But we can also look at certain grants that we're going for right now. One particular grant that just came out in the state of Missouri, there's $20 million up for public school districts through DESE for safety enhancements. We're applying for that grant to help get in the cost for Red Star, so controlled access, blocked vestibules, cameras, even server and cabling. So when I say servers, IT servers, not serving the food, so various things like that. So it's kind of a multifaceted approach, what we're looking at, what we can qualify for that's out there. Also, like through DESE, there's equipment enhancement grants that we're looking at. So we kind of need to see what we're qualifying for before we know if we're going to actually have expenditures that we have to go after.
Sure. I want to go back even a higher level. So have we gotten much back in terms of looking at flooding issues and potential remediation on drainage and some of those kinds of things?
We've had multiple studies done. We've had multiple engineers out there. The two recommendations that basically have been given to us is an addition of an exterior sump pump basin that would help catch a lot of the water through a French drain system before it actually gets to the building, and then a refurbishment of an interior sump pump that was already out there.
And so I know we probably don't have cost estimates for that kind of stuff, but rough orders of magnitude costing of that kind of thing is in the ballpark of?
So currently right now, we're getting more, I guess, fine-tooth estimates, but you know, you're looking at, you know, an interior sump pump, because a lot of that we can do in-house. We can actually purchase that, and it depends if you go with like a half-horse, three-quarter horse, or a one-horsepower pump. We've got rotor rooters going through the drains where we've not rotor rooters, but camera systems. So all of our sewer lines going out of that building are good and clean. So we're not having to redo that. So basically, for something like that in-house, it's going to be the cost of the pump. On the exterior, we own our own excavator, we own our own skid steers, we own our own equipment where we can do all of that. We have certified plumbers that install that stuff professionally. So, you know, you're basically looking at cost of materials. So, you know, looking at how much does 2-inch clean fill cost? You know, are we buying it by a ton, or are we buying it by a half load? You know, right now gravel, a couple $100 that you put in there, a 55-gallon drum that you bury that has the bottom cut out, the top cut out, and then dropping the sump pump in there. We can do those things very cost effectively.
Awesome. So we haven't uncovered anything that's like a major problem that looks like it's kind of staring us in the face as far as this goes?
We have not.
That's awesome.
The only things that we're starting to uncover right now is as we're piecing things in together, where we're upgrading the electronic, 400 amp electrical panel, you're looking at a very long lead time for that.
Sure.
An elevator that we're looking at adding, very long lead time for that. Switch gears can be anywhere from 24 to 36 weeks out. And if you don't know what a switch gear is, think of it, you see them in really big buildings. That's where all the main utilities, the electric utilities come in, and it's the big panels that hum. And you want to put on a glove if you're throwing a breaker on it, otherwise it may knock you back a foot or two just from the static discharge. So some of those things we're discovering. Ideally, we were hoping that we would be able to get in August, but looking more and more at what the delays are on getting some of this equipment or some of these upgrades that we're going to have to do, it's getting pushed back, and we're probably looking at January. So that semester when we look at making that transition.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Any other questions?
So do we have an idea and some sort of idea of what this project's going to end up costing in refurbishment? Do we have a guesstimate?
We're currently still looking at about $1 million project right now. However, that could change with awards of grants.
Okay.
But it could also change with supply. You know, sometimes there is cost escalations that just come out of the blue nowhere. If we see fuel costs increase, the cost of crude oil, it pretty much is going to increase the expense on everything. So when we see oil prices going down, it helps drop prices. It's kind of difficult to explain, but that oil price directly affects the electrical components that go into your building because of different types of conduits and, rubber coatings, plastic coatings, that's oil-based. All of your plumbing equipment is oil-based. And then we start looking at your direct electrical components with your switch gears and things like that. It's kind of roving delays. You never know what's going to hit, when it's going to hit, because industries will end up, hey, let's focus on getting this component made. And so all of a sudden now supply has dwindled on this, and now it's back ordered. So if you can't find it, the cost has escalated on it. It's a juggling game right now. But
Okay.
it's not something that we can't overcome. We've been doing it with all the last projects for the last several years, and it's something that I don't see us being a huge hindrance other than just maybe adding time onto the project.
Thank you.
And so then big picture, Josh, when you look at that, and if you added $1 million ballpark to what we paid for it, we end up with how many square foot facility? How big? It's giant.
Is it 27,000
For
square foot?
36.
Or 36, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Was it counting the basement?
Right, so price per square foot is like super, super low, even based on that, so
You
exciting.
can't find anything that
Sure.
cheap.
Even
Even after the remodel.
Right, no, it's super exciting.
And what we're also doing, just, we're going after, and Brian's not here, but we're going after a lot of equipment on E-rates, so, the charter service coming in, we're adding, fiber going into that building, so the speed, going in, the various different, TVs and projectors and the boards that'll be up in the classrooms, and, we're also doing some prep work in there to add for future curriculum. For example, one of the rooms will be a science room, but we're getting it prepped with natural gas and also water and sewer. So, not sewer, but gray water.
So what do you got plated there?
Right. So if we're adding a lab table where we start introducing chemistry to the kids and they start mixing various different things and going on that route, all of that infrastructure is in there. So we're doing all of that from the get-go. So once we start adding to the curriculum later on, structurally, it'll be there. We don't have to go back and retrofit it. Great questions. Any others?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now on my agenda, it says the Treasury Finance Report.
Report is for February. General fund started with the beginning fund balance of $21.3 million. $5.2 million in revenues were received. Expenses were $1.5. Transfers of $614,000 to the special revenue fund, leaving us with an ending fund balance of $24.3 million. The cash and investment detail is listed. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Quick and easy. Next up, we have the district-wide athletic report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm excited to see Ms. McKinley here earlier. She's still giving out jobs. She was my first boss at the Chaffee public pool. So spring sports are off and running at both the high school and junior high. One thing I wanted to mention, I don't know if you guys remember last week we were in second winter, and then we went to the monsoon season on Friday. So, but due to the investment of the school district in the turf out there at the baseball field, we were the only people playing on Saturday, I can promise you. So we appreciate that, and even today and Monday, I'm sure there's a lot of schools that aren't able to practice or play because of all the rain. So we appreciate that. Our fall winter athletic award ceremony last Tuesday was a great night to celebrate our successes in the fall and winter season. A big thank you to Anitra Armbruster, Ken Campbell, and Coach McGill for their hard work. The slideshow created by Ken Campbell is on the website, on the athletics website, so you can to view that as well. Elementary school soccer has a couple weeks left, and talking to the coaches, it hasn't been without its challenges. You're teaching kids that never played soccer how to play soccer, even at the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade level. But they are really excited. I've talked to a couple of them that how much they've learned just over the last couple of weeks. So they're really excited about that, how much they've improved so far. Track and field has started. Last year, I've got some numbers here, some data. I'm not the data king like Jamie is, but last year the city had 86 signed up K through 6 for track. That's the entirety of their program. This year, we just in grades 3 through 6 from us, from our side, we had 142. So total, we're going to double what they had last year. Baseball and softball evaluation events are happening this week at both the high school and the junior high, as those seasons get kicked off in May. As of right now, signs for those leagues have surpassed last year's numbers as well. I talked to Kate Horrell at the city, and he said our number of teams are up in both baseball and softball as well. Community news: our high school volleyball and football teams will be holding camps in early May. We're going to use those as a jumping off point for our fall sports. Because of the deadlines for the city are the first week of school, and you guys know as parents you get 8,000 things coming home the first week of school. We're going to try to get those kids signed up before they leave school, and also be able to communicate with those people that are already signing up. So that's the plan. They'll also be used to instruct coaches that we're going to be using on techniques our high school staff would like to see implemented in those camps. Football team members visited all 5 elementary schools March 14th and read to kindergarten and first grade students to celebrate Literacy Month. And they were much appreciated for them being there. Anybody got any questions for me?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have our board reports. Do we have a MSBA delegates report?
Just lunch and learns. There's one more of those left this Friday. And then the Delegate Advocacy Day is tomorrow up at Jeff City, and I'm not going to be able to go out of town, but I didn't hear if anybody else was going to be able to make it up either. But those are the 2 big things, and I'll leave the legislative side to the legislative person.
I welcome you to come back in. So on the legislative side, a lot of things are working through the system right now that involve the school system. Several are on the taxation side. There's a number of different bills floating through that would look at reducing taxes, which obviously has implications on districts like ours if and when some of these things pass. Most notably maybe is the personal property tax reduction, which my colleague, Miss Langston, was so ambitious that she actually reached out to Bob Adams from the assessor's office and said, if this thing passes, basically it would say that any vehicle you have, either a vehicle or motor vehicle or farm machinery that's over 10 years old would no longer have a personal property tax. And so that would be, depending on how they calculate it, a little over $1 million a year to Cape Girardeau Public Schools based on the formula and what Cape County gets. So certainly not great news for the district standpoint in terms of funding, but something worth keeping an eye on for sure. There's a couple other bills going through right now that involve open enrollment and charter school expansion. The open enrollment bill would allow, one of the House bills would allow districts to accept non-resident students, and then some of that funding would follow them, the state and federal money, and the local funding would stay with the resident district. But people can kind of opt out of that, and ultimately it's something that you don't have to do if you require additional staff, or if you don't have room for more students, and there's some caps on it. But we're keeping an eye on that as well. Some of the charter school stuff that we've talked about before continues to flow through, and we'll keep an eye on that as well. The one other thing, the Parents' Bill of Rights is the other thing that we're kind of keeping an eye on. Just an interesting thing that's drawn a lot of opinions one way or the other from folks who are either pro or con. But that's what I got. If anybody's got more stuff, you're welcome to add. If you follow what I do.
That was a pretty robust.
Yeah. The
It's at least 70% accurate too, which
well,
is good.
and I'll follow up and get this to everybody, but on the 17th, that lunch and learn was actually really solid. That was super objective, and they went through all those bills.
Last week was
Very
good.
got it. I missed last week.
I was on last Friday's, and it was pretty good. To the first
We're
2, I wasn't a
covering
fan of, but the last week's.
Yeah, but that one went through all those bills, and actually they just kind of objectively expounded upon, okay, here's impacts. And obviously every district is going to be a little different, but I'll reach back out. They're supposed to send out copies of all those, so you have them in your hands. I haven't seen that yet, but if I get it, I'll send it out to everybody.
Very good. Next up, do we have a foundation report?
I have one thing. So Dr. Fagley, who's on the phone,
yeah,
she's presenting a paper at some national conference. So she had more important things to do than come here and talk. So The foundation just had one item, that's the 17th Annual Tiger Golf Shootout. It's scheduled for Monday, May 15th, and everybody has a sign-up sheet in front of you, so it's always a good time. There's morning tee times and afternoon tee times, depending on when you're available. And I'd encourage you, if you enjoy playing golf or don't enjoy playing golf, put a team together. It's always a lot of fun. So the information's on there. If you're interested in being a sponsor, or if business is being a sponsor, there's sponsorship opportunities, and the information, the details are on the sheet in front of you as well. Just let the foundation know as soon as possible, and they'll get you taken care of.
Awesome. Okay, next up we have our first reading of board policies, which include BDDB-2 pertaining to agendas, policy BDDH-1 for public participation in board meetings, and then IGCD for virtual courses, and IDDA for full-time MOCAP virtual courses. Any questions on the first reading or comments? Seeing none. Moving right along. Next, we'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda items, which include minutes from previous meetings on February 27th and March 7th of 2023, the payment of the bills, not touch displays for CMS classrooms, and the 2024-25 academic calendar. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion or questions about the consent agenda items? Seeing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Those. All. Thank you, Missy. Scared me a little bit. All right. Next up, we have business. First is the motion to consider to authorize the superintendent to negotiate a contract with Stanley Dernberger Hopper and Associates LLC and to execute the contract on behalf of the board for audit services for the 2022-23 school year, with the option to renew for an additional 2 years through June 30th, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
Ms. Dudek put this RFP out. You want to comment on?
Patrick Hittner responded to my RFP on behalf of Stanley Dernberger Hopper and Associates. His fee this year that we paid him, $24,000. He has proposed the same fee. Patrick is local. He works well with us. He does a lot for us throughout the year, assists us with conversion of our financial statements, and I think that's what we have him as auditor. So it's my recommendation to approve his RFP, or his
Perfect.
proposal.
Any other questions?
How many years have we used them?
Long time.
14.
Long time.
14?
My first year was her first year.
Impressive. All right, so the motion is to authorize the superintendent to negotiate a contract with Stanley Dernberger Hopper and Associates LLC and to execute the contract on behalf of the board to audit services for the 2022-23 school year, with the option to renew for an additional 2 years through June 30th of 2025. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Missy? You're for or against?
I'm an aye.
Aye. All right, sorry, I should have waited on you longer.
Scary, huh?
She did scare me.
That's kind of funny.
Moving to the next motion to be considered. Uh-oh. This is for the second reading and adoption. So the motion to be considered to adopt the following board policies as recommended by the MSBA and Policy Review Committee, including GAECA-2 for eligibility to enroll and KC for community involvement in decision-making. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the second reading? Seeing none. Therefore, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Next one is the longer one, longest one, I should say. Next is for the approval of construction bid packages for the CHS athletic facility. Let me read a portion of this before we start. The project estimate was $2.6 million and did not include the contingency. The bid total for the athletic facility Phase 1 is $2,485,409, which does include the 7% for the CMAR. So we have 4 packages. You want me to go ahead and start with first, and we can add in discussion? Okay. So the first motion to consider is to authorize Brock Miller Construction, Inc. as CMAR to negotiate a contract on behalf of the board with Frohnberg Concreters, Inc. for site work on the CHS athletic facility at a cost not to exceed $36,000. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Any discussion, or we could use this to maybe break into a little bit more insight?
So our budget estimate on this project was $2.6 million. You add those up, plus the 7%, obviously we're under that, so we're excited about that. Construction manager at risk means that the contractor that's overseeing the project can also bid parts of the work. So that's, you'll see that not only are they the manager at risk, but they're also bidding on one of the packages, the general trades package. So that's what that's all about. I'll let Josh explain. He's been kind of the boots on the ground daily operations with this whole process.
I don't know what to add other than what you just said. So everything was put out for bid. As you can see, we tried to articulate it through the rationale as much as possible. This was sent out to multiple different trade groups, depending upon their specialties, and how many people pulled from those. We had it listed, multiple ads in the local paper and up front, and then through various different online resources for these companies, and we feel that we're very fortunate where the pricing has come back in favorable for where we're at with this original bid that went out.
Does anybody have any questions? Further comments, questions?
Do we have a sense, so this is the wider version, right, that we bid out? Do we have a sense, or have a better sense than the last time about kind of the $2 million number around finishing the inside on what that looks like? Or
We've explored some different things with our own maintenance department.
Right. Depending upon the route that we want to go, and I don't want to give anybody a heart attack, but we could go from $500,000 all the way to $25 million if we wanted to. Like if we went with mahogany lockers and a PlayStation in every single locker and made it like a professional sports locker room, the sky's the limit on that. Looking at the turf, the turf to finish that up is roughly around $300,000 because we're going to have the site work already done on this first phase. So the large cost of the turf a lot of the time is that site work. Even though it's inside, we still have to have drainage for it. Otherwise, it would be like pouring a pitcher of water in your living room on the carpet. And this being an athletic facility, you're going to have water bottles spilt, jugs spilt, sweat, all those different types of things. So it still has to have the drainage in it. But all of that stuff will be done, ready to go to basically have the turf pulled out and installed and good to go on that.
just a quick follow-up, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's part of the 2.4 number right here though, right, is what you're saying? Like that drainage and all those things that would be already done would be part of this number, right?
The infrastructure would be set and ready to go to receive.
You just have to plug into it or do whatever.
Right. There'd be a little bit of grading work
Sure,
that would
sure,
still
sure.
have to go in, but you wouldn't be as extensive as if we had a blank field out there and they came in, because
Right.
to take you through that process, just a quick rabbit hole there, you're basically digging down anywhere from 1 foot to 2 foot, taking all that soil out and then building it back up with a lot of different channeling of drainage pipes and grades and things of that nature. We're not
Right.
All of that's being done here in this phase 1.
Sure.
Yep. Then, as we discussed, let me just kind of take it back as an example to Red Star. We have people within our own maintenance department that can do a lot of this work. Right now, what we're looking at finishing this out on the inside is metal studs and certain different types of sheetrock. That sheetrock is mold resistant. Also, we're looking at different fire rated sheetrocks that per building code. We can do all that. We can paint. We can hang all these different things. We're also looking at different netting systems right now on the inside. For example, if you go out to Sportsplex, you look at the big netting that hangs over the turf fields there. Right now, we're looking at installing that. Looking at divider curtain coming down so you can actually have 2 different practices going on at the same time. Field goal nettings that would drop down, soccer goal nettings that would drop down, and then including batting cages as well too. A lot of this stuff can also be a la carte. So if we don't do it right off the bat when we look at phase 2 and finishing it, we can finish it like a phase 3 or a phase 4, work in partnership with, if somebody's wanting to buy a batting cage for it, then we're able to do that. The other part is we're looking at how our other community members are going to be using this through our youth sports programs as well too. So, this may be something where we reach out to a local organization and we're putting in 2 indoor soccer fields in there to be played during the wintertime. So it kind of opens up what we've had with Sportsplex and giving us those times. So there's a lot to play in as that's going on.
So when you look at that, so the turf, obviously, 300,000 is a big single item within that, as I would expect. Mm-hmm. When you look and kind of bucket the other big things, recognizing you gave a really wide range in terms of how you choose to finish things out.
We're looking at, so for example, we're looking at our heating and cooling for it. We're not going to be placing it on the roof. We've saved a lot of money to not put what's called rooftop units go on top of the roof. So like when you pass a big commercial building, you see those square boxes on the roof, that's you heating and air. We're going to ground mount those and then duct work it up into the side. We've saved a lot of money structurally since the beams don't have to support that weight on top. We do that stuff in-house a lot of times. A couple of years ago, we replaced a 100-ton chiller ourselves in-house that normally just the work alone could well be into the 6 figures for that. So, and that's, I'm sorry, including the part, we did that in-house. We hired out the cranes, we had our own operator on set and did all the piping and connections. So we're looking at saving as much money as possible by doing as much as we can in-house.
And so then, and thank you again, pardon my ignorance to some of these questions, but so when you look at like the HVAC stuff, that's obviously going to be another big expense just in general. The other big ones will be like the locker room, finishing out locker rooms, some coaching office, but again, most of that's kind of, other than lockers and things like that, which again, I think in the overall stratosphere are not.
So a lot of things like, you can say plumbing is going to be a big ticket item, but like one sink faucet, $200 or $100. But you're paying bathrooms and locker rooms. You capture all of that, and through bulk pricing,
sure.
Doing those things, we'll save costs on that as well too.
So your gut right now, based on kind of what you've seen, I know you gave a giant range, but my guess is it won't be 500,000, and my other guess is it won't be 25 million.
No.
And so when you look at that and say for what you plan to spend on turf and HVAC and outfitting locker rooms and bathrooms and things like that, just knowing what we're planning to do with it, you think that number is a range that's probably tighter than that? What would you guess?
I think we're looking at, from everything that we know right now, we're probably looking at another 1.5 or 2 to finish it out. It can be even cheaper than that, quite honestly, if we're able to take on several of those projects ourselves.
How much does that change our timeline? I mean, obviously the people that we use that are internal are doing this in lieu of something else. I'm guessing some of this would be in the summertime. I don't know the time frame of what we're looking at right now in terms of scheduling. If we
Right. So from right now, the approach that we're looking at doing is rolling it out in phases as quickly as we can do that. So once we get the structure erected and we're ready to go, coming in and kind of pre-ordering or getting in the pipeline on certain things. For example, like we cannot install turf ourselves. That's a specialty type of deal. You know, we have guys that can install carpet, but when you get to athletic turf, it's a whole different ballgame.
Sure.
You know, where are they at in the queue? You know, do they already have other fields that they're doing? Is that something they may not be able to get to us till, you know, August, September, October? Who knows? We're kind of exploring that. You know, right now, we're not seeing a big run on plumbing fixtures. We're not seeing delays on that, so that would be very easy to kind of move forward to. But it's a building process. We have the foundation. Next, we're doing with the walls, but before you enclose the walls, you got to do the wiring, you got to do the plumbing, the water lines, and all of those different types of things. This base bid, though, gets all of that infrastructure in the slab for us. So we've got the water lines sticking up out of the slab. We've got the sewer lines and the gray water lines, you know, there. We've got all the electric going in there. However, looking at the actual electric service that's in there, you know, we're going to be on a delay for panels. So we're looking at, once we get to this step, there are some other orders we need to do very quickly. So if it's a 20-week lead time, we're in the queue for it. So, you know, come summer, come fall, we're going to be good to go.
Sure. So one last question for me, and then I'll turn it over to other people who have questions. So if we were to approve this portion tonight, your estimate in terms of when they would start breaking ground, they would start moving dirt, they would have a structure in place where they were ready to go, do all the things that are queued up to fish out. What's our timeline guesstimate right now?
This first phase should be done by mid to late summer.
So 14, 17 weeks, is that accurate with what?
Yes. Yeah, we just met with the new Corps representative I met with him on Tuesday, went through, we have everything checked and ready to go, all the specifications, ready to go for what the load limits on this. One of the things that we are adding as an alternate is supermarket columns. And what that is on your interior girders, when you're erecting that building, you'll kind of see those structural support beams go up in like a V.
Tapered.
Right, where they're tapered. What a supermarket column does is it goes straight up, and then after 10 feet, then it adds the V, so that way you have more clearance space on the inside. Yeah. And we wanted that for flush mounting, so when we go to pad the walls, so if we've got, you know, soccer drills going on and the kid is going 100 miles an hour into a wall, it'll be a flush mounted pad that they, you know, can bump into, you know, or a kid gets tackled into or whatnot, and it's not going to be an angled wall that can cause harm to a kid.
If I was a better reader, I would have saw that 14 and 17 week thing too. No, thank you.
There was a lot to read before the first motion. I figured we'd touch on some of that as we went.
I guess,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I guess I have some concerns, and I think tonight we've put a lot of those to bed. But I have some concerns about, it was a little confusing the last time. We said it's 2.6 million is what the motion was made for, to build this athletic complex. I think we called it athletic complex, look at me. And I think that was a little confusing because that's the building, right, the shell. It's not a usable athletic complex at that point. And I don't feel comfortable doing something without something on paper saying this is what we're going to spend on a usable athletic complex, whatever that number is. If it's 4.6 million, if it's 4.1 million, if it's 27.6 million, whatever, you know, whatever number that is. And I mean, the number one best-selling, most read book of all time has a quote, "For which of you, when he wants to build a building, does not first sit down and calculate the cost?" And so I ask you, why have we not sat down and put in a cost for a usable building instead of a cost for the shell? And I think that the community, I personally would feel better if we had a cost for a total cost, like, hey, this is what we anticipate, or, you know, not to exceed X amount to make a usable building versus to make an empty shell. So I would like to make a motion that we postpone this discussion until we have till the next regular meeting, when we can get that information together and make a decision on the entire building versus just this shell.
So I'm going to ask a follow-up question. So the things that you talked about just now, how difficult is that to put that into something that says, here's what we think those things are. My guess is you kind of have it already.
Yeah, I mean, it's parameters on how we want to do finishes. So, you know, a lot of this is also dependent upon what our budget looks like. You know, when we start composing our budget for next year, we want to, just like building a house, or we want to do it at, you know, $175 a square foot, or we want to do it at $450 a square foot, and where we go from there. So the numbers that I've talked to you about is basically within average, you know, finishes. Average finishes of what we do our other buildings at.
Sure.
So again, you know, depending how much we do in-house or how much we bid out, that'll be a determining factor. But, you know, we have those different types of figures, and, you know, that's what we're building our budget for next year. You know, when our new fiscal year comes around, we're going to be taking those numbers, adding it in, and looking at completing phase 2.
So is that big variance though, when you, and I know it's hard to do some of this, like pulling numbers here and there, but when you go to $1 million, from $1.5 million to 2, that $500,000 kind of variance idea that says, is that a function of saying at $2 million it means we contract out almost everything and pay a subcontractor a higher premium than what our labor would have been by doing it in-house, I'm assuming?
Yeah. So I, you know, to quote on the 500,000 to on, hey, we know we're going to say that if the labor, you know, that also depends where our workforce is at with Red Star and what we're getting done there, and where our workforce is on just, you know, 6 years ago, I can tell you, 2 days before school started, we had a rain break outside Clifford, you know, but we were able to have school on that first day because our guys were able to work basically through the middle of the night and, you know, repaired that. So, you know, who knows, we don't have another, you know, on-property water main break that they've got to get pulled off to, and they get pulled away from doing one of those jobs. So we do our best to be good financial stewards of our resources, but to give you an exact, until something goes out for bid, it's very difficult to give you exact costs because we don't know until it's bid out. And the last thing I want to do is give you bad information where you say, oh, well, I thought you said it was going to cost this. And I'm like, well, that's what we thought through our best estimate. However, it wasn't bid out. We don't have those prices locked in. Now this is going to cost. So then it looks like there was somebody misleading you.
Do you think there's an ability to do a greater level of granularity than what you have right now, what you shared today, and put something down on paper and say, here's what we think this is based on our best estimates, based on labor provided in-house versus contract out, recognizing something could always change. I totally agree with you on that. I mean, if we're saying we're going to assume we're going to use our own people and they get caught doing stuff for Central Academy or the water main breaks or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, no way to hold somebody's feet to the fire and go, you said 2.6 million and it's 2.485 million. You know, like, just a better, I would feel more comfortable if we had numbers for a usable facility versus a shell.
And board's already approved $2.6 million underneath that, so.
The motions are to determine which packages that money gets spent on, 2.6 that was approved. What would be for discussion would be how much would be spent, like Josh was alluding to, the packages that we would finish the project with, and then determine how much that would be budgeted for. If we feel like we can do it for, would you say 1.5 to 2 is what you feel like right now? Lead time of 14 to 17 weeks to work out details for proposing what the budget would be for finishing that project?
Well, a lot of that's going to be dependent upon, I don't mean to push it away from me, but working with Lindsay, working with Dr. Glass, working with Dr. Binion on formulating what our next school budget
definitely,
you know, is going to be presented to you at a later date. And then we would look at capturing that within our school budget. And there's a lot of things that go into play there. Hiring additional staff, or, you know, equipment purchases, you know, wages and benefits and all of those different nuggets that go into developing that.
I guess the only thing I'd add kind of to, and I want to speak for Veronica, but I think the idea that if we're going to go do this and we're going to build a facility, that ultimately we're not right now saying we're going to finish. Like, we're not saying that right now. But if we feel like we're not sure that we're going to have the money or the priority to go finish it in the next budget, the question is, does it make sense to go do it if you're not sure you're going to do it?
I don't think anybody has said they're not sure that we could afford to do it.
No,
I
we
think
could
that's
afford it, I wouldn't be bringing it to you.
right. So I think it's going to be more a matter of how far it gets finished, to what extent, like the finishes,
Phase one,
the actual
phase
finishes.
two, phase three, you're doing it through a phase process, which means that you're allowed to be able to adjust your budget as you go along, because we don't even know what taxes are coming in from next year, so you can't give just a say that, yes, we're going to spend $2 million to purchase, to pay for the entire thing. You don't know if this legislation is going to pass or not.
And the strategy. I think when you look at this, obviously there's lots of facilities. I'm sure there's a laundry list a mile long of things people would like at different facilities. If I had money, I'd put my priority here or there. And so at some point you draw the line and say, this is what we're giving to capital budgets and this is how much money we're going to spend. And you're either above the line or you're below the line. And so I guess to me, I look at this, there's certain elements of this that would make this not a usable building without certain things being completed. Like, if you don't have HVAC, you're probably not going to use it. If you don't have plumbing hooked up, you're probably not going to use it. If you don't have certain things, you're not going to use it. And so I'm not questioning that we have the money or don't have the money. I agree with Veronica in principle that, to me, we should go as far as we can to kind of laying out, here's what we plan on spending this money on. Because I can sit and take notes and say $300,000 for turf, but right now that's kind of the only number I have. There was a number that a faucet cost $40 or whatever. I'm kidding, whatever it was said. But I think being able to kind of build that up and say, I get it, it's going to be bid out, and this process is something I don't do. But at the end of the day, we have some expectation that things are, the $1.5 to $2 million number, we didn't just make that up. I mean, we're adding up a whole bunch of things and saying we think it's going to land here. We're adding some contingency for labor, which will put us to here. And to me, I agree with Veronica. I think it would be very helpful just to have that and see it, even if it's done in private, because we're worried about bids and some of those things, just to have a sense that this is where we're at before we move forward. And I know that's not what we're talking about right now. We're kind of talking about the finish side. But at the end of the day, you know, as Veronica quoted JC, I mean, that was JC talking when he said that. I think we know what it's going to cost to finish this facility, for the most part, but we just seem like we don't want to say it, and I don't understand why we don't want to say it.
Because you don't know what construction costs are going to be like over the next couple of years.
And again, if we say it's a couple years before we make this building usable, I think that's a whole different problem.
Because the second part of that quote from JC is, for which of you, when he wants to build a building, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who observe it begin to ridicule him, saying, he began to build and was not able to finish. We don't want to wait a couple years to do this, right? Like, we don't want to sit there a couple years.
I don't believe the plan is for it to sit for a couple of years. I believe the plan is that this first phase will take a lead time of 14 to 17 weeks. And then within that time frame, we're going to be looking at how to come up with this second package that we're just like what we're looking at today to finish this project.
Sure. I guess my only point to that is, though, if that's what we're doing, then let's don't say we don't know what construction costs will be in 2 years. It doesn't matter what construction
It
costs will be in
doesn't.
2
You're
years.
right. But I didn't say that.
I know.
And
again, I think we know the answer to these questions. I just don't understand why we're not seemingly saying the answer to these questions.
I guess that's the reason I've made the motion to postpone, is so that we can get the answer to those questions in a usable way that is not, well, we think, and a real number, and then let's look at a real number.
the motion that you're implying, though, is not even on the table as far as we haven't even looked at what the price for the second phase is going to be.
Right. I've just made a motion to postpone this until next week, so that or till next month, so that we can look at those things.
How quickly could you have something, Josh, that's usable? Like, not bidding everything out, but just saying, here's the line items that we think are the major hitters. I mean, again, we look at some of our stuff right now, and there's things that say, you know, the all other category is a number that's like $1 million, you know, kind of thing. And so using the big HVAC, turf,
to make it a usable facility.
Bathrooms, but again, I think you gotta bucket it somehow and
Right,
say, like,
right,
here's what we're
just-
spending the money on.
If you buy a drop-down net later, or if we can put it into phase 2 or not, like, we want it just to be usable, not necessarily for it to have everything in phase 3 and phase 4 might entail.
Yeah, I'll go through some numbers here. I don't think it'd take very long to get that information. A few days to a week possibly, I could have our engineers come up with something.
I agree that that's what we're going to do. I mean, again, even if it just reinforces what we already think is true, I think it's worth the exercise from a transparency standpoint, in my view.
What would satisfy that though? Like when Josh was speaking earlier, he said it could be, if we said it would be anywhere from $500,000 to whatever the dollar amount, realistically, it's not going to be 27 million.
Right.
To make it usable or to have it with all the drop down nettings, batting cages, which it's usable before you have batting cages that drop down or
Sure,
nettings
absolutely.
or dividers and all that kind of stuff. But I think that once what we're here to do is approve how to spend what's already been approved, and then use the additional time to figure out what we truly want to fit within what maybe we are told is going to cost from getting from usable to upper echelon. Then that gives us that time to work that out to fit within.
So I guess I go back
So
to,
the original numbers that we're basing everything on, I'm looking at the document here, was right around 3 million for that second phase, but what we've done with the engineers and the architects and with our CMAR company is we've gone and whittled that back quite a bit. On certain things that I'm looking here, like masonry, we were gonna put in the CMU wall in between separating the turf and the locker rooms. That was a $460,000 expense, but we've taken that out. We're doing it with metal studs and plywood and sheetrock. That'll still be extremely sturdy. You won't be able to break through, but it won't be concrete. We're looking at sports equipment. We have $150,000 budgeted for that. That would be the netting, then also the drop-down batting cages. We can pull that out and do that later. Toilet partitions, you're looking at roughly $27,000 for that. So basically the showers and the toilets where you have the doors and those aren't cheap.
Those seem like a must to them.
those seem like, yeah.
Plumbing, you're looking at $488,000 basically to finish everything out. But again, we've dropped that number down because we're going through and looking at it, what can we complete internally as opposed to what we can do externally. Now, what's very difficult right here is by me announcing these numbers, we have companies that are now saying, oh, Cape has now afforded $40,000 for that, so guess what? I'm not going to bid Cape $40,000 or $38,000 where I could have done it. I know they've got $40,000 on the table, so we should. So we need to be very careful about what we're doing.
And I think
My advice or not take it, but
I think the assumption that there wasn't a plan to build the whole thing out is incorrect, because they had the whole cost already to build the whole thing, finish it out. Everything was already laid out, but in order to protect the budget execution for this year, instead of throwing $5 million for the 22 school year, it was parcel it out. And the intention is, what I assumed was that the next budget is going to have the monies already allocated in it to finish this. So it's not do it, wait 3 years. The plan's already there. And what's great about it is that we can execute this plan down to where the cost won't be $3 million on top of this. It'll be less than that. So I think this presumption that there wasn't a plan out there, the plan was always there. I mean, that's what this big meeting with 30 people in here talking through all of it from start to finish. But it was how do we protect the budget for this year, not overspend, and then allow for the wonderful legislations coming next year so that we can walk into it carefully and not blow every capital dollar that we've got in the budget and walk into it, very judiciously, so it's there. So I don't mean to overspeak there, but I believe that was what the intention and plan was of how this was to be executed.
And we had talked about that when we hired, go back a couple of months ago when we hired Rock Miller as the CMAR. You were part of that process. We talked about the various different phases and how we set that up.
And again, I'm not proposing we put a bunch of confidential information out. That's not my position. But I guess to me I think as a board member, what I would like is the ability, to Rocca's point, to say, have the conversation about what are we spending this money on? What are we getting into when we say we're going to write a check for 2.46 or 2.48, whatever $1 million to build the shell? That's my point. And again, to me, I think having some level of clarity around that is a normal thing. I mean, some transparency on that. I think that's normal. And again, my goal is not to tip people's hands on what they should bid for things, because we're going to bid it in a fair market process, and so ultimately the bids will be what they'll be. But I don't think it's too much to ask to have that level of transparency as we talk about spending millions of dollars. And maybe I'm out to lunch.
Well, I guess the only thing I would say is I think we have that transparency, because I think that was in that plan of what is going to be fitted out, what color the carpet's going to be and that stuff. Obviously, that's not decided yet. But that it's going to have the locker rooms. I mean, they had drawings, perfunctory drawings, and to walk through. So I guess that's where I'm at, is that I don't think there's anything that is unknown other than the final costs. I mean, we're fighting the exact same stuff with switchgear and everything else. The economy's crazy right now. You try to bid anything, it's wild trying to estimate. So it's amazing that what they estimated at 2.6, they actually were able to come in underneath it. So it kind of improves my confidence that, hey, if they're saying it's going to be 3, we would say, yeah, with
another percent in there is a $25,000 that we didn't hit home on, but that's, and that may be $25,000 that we don't touch.
Yeah, so that's encouraging that for the whole execution of the project, and that it's continuous. It's not, we're going to build it and it's going to sit out there and collect dust. There is a plan. So, I mean, to the point, there is a plan, and it is there. It's not going to sit and collect dust, that in June, when the budget's rolled out, there will be a line item in there that it's going to keep rolling. And there'll be monies next year to finish it. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but
no, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you that I believe there's a plan also. I just want to see it.
He's got the drawings.
And I mean, and see and talk about the actual dollars instead of talking about the shell. I feel like the shell is breaking it down into more palatable pieces, and let's talk about the whole thing. So I guess that's just where I'm at, and I'm not in any way trying to get you to say here it's going to be $27,000 for whatever you said. I don't care what each individual thing is. Okay,
That's how you bid it out.
I understand that's how you bid it out, but like as a community member,
Sure.
I'm more concerned about the bottom line. Like we're going to put all this stuff in it. The total amount is going to be, and I mean, actually, to your point, Casey, looks to be like Dr. Glass and Mr. Crowell did an excellent job estimating what this was going to come in at. So that just gives me more confidence in their ability to estimate it when they give me a number, because they did a great job this time. I mean, this is incredible. Less than 5% under budget and under budget, you did a great job. So like, I guess I'm just asking you to keep doing that and give me a number for a usable facility.
And I think at the last meeting, Dr. Glass had said 2 to 3 million, and Josh just said 3 million on top of that. So I mean, I think we've got that number. I think we've had that number for a while.
Here's what I can tell you for sure. In 30 days, these numbers are not relevant anymore. It will go up. Steel prices, when we got our original estimate, this went up 10%, just over that brief period of time that we did do our estimates. Otherwise, we would beat this even more, this estimate. So I can assure you it will be a higher price the next time we come around. We probably will have to rebid this thing out.
And to me, that's why I'm confident with those phases and feel good about them, just because to me it shows that we are being good stewards of our dollars. Because if I'm wrong, but we could probably easily go pay for the whole thing right now, one fell swoop. But instead, we're taking the time to go in phases, and that there is a plan, that we are getting the right estimates, and still coming in under budget. I mean, to me, I'm jumping up and down.
This is a beautiful moment when everybody gets to look at me.
And there you are.
Does anybody have anything to add? As of now, the motion on the floor is to authorize Miller Construction, Inc. as CMAR to negotiate a contract on behalf of the board with Frohnberger Concreters, Inc. for site work on the CHS athletic facility at a cost not to exceed $36,000. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Missy?
She's still there.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Next. The motion to consider is to authorize Brock Miller Construction, Inc. as CMAR to negotiate a contract on behalf of the board with Raider Mechanical, Inc. for plumbing on-site utilities on the CHS athletic facility at a cost not to exceed $125,000. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Discussion about this one.
I mean, I'll say one other thing. I guess to me, I'm for what we're doing here. I think it would be helpful to me to be able to just see kind of what are we looking at spending our money. I agree 100%. My confidence, our ability to estimate's great. I just don't understand why, as the board, we wouldn't have at least some sort of granular level. Because I think the drawings that you're talking about, Casey, and that we've seen, I remember anything saying, you know, turf was $300K or HVAC is this. I mean, I don't remember any of that. And again, I think to me it was just helpful to ground you and say, here's where we're looking at saving money by taking out a $460,000 masonry wall and putting on something else. It's a level of detail that maybe I don't have the expertise to go really judge, but I think to me it's a nice process from a transparency standpoint, even if it's just internal. It's not public, but to say, hey, I've seen the work on this, it looks great, and I'm confident it's going to be a great facility. And again, I think some of the talk around the phasing idea gets confused, I think, with the idea that we're doing this from, we have budgetary money in one period and in other periods to phase this out, but we're not planning on taking 2 years, 3 years to go do this. That's not the plan. And I think every time we kind of pivot that direction, it becomes even more confusing to say, are we doing this or are we not doing this? Because I think we're doing this. Tonight we're saying we're doing this. And so I think, to me, I think it's helpful just to lay it out there if we can. Even do an internal board to say, hey, we can all look at this and say, it makes no sense. And here's where we're saving money off the $3 million the guys told us originally. It's going to be $2 million, or it's going to be $1.5 million, or whatever it's going to be. To me, that's helpful, but that's just my perspective.
And I totally agree with you, and I feel like those conversations have happened, and with people that have had questions on this, have been able to ask the questions. And it's unfortunate that it comes down to this meeting that we're just now asking the questions, I feel like, too. I mean, I saw this happen when we did the baseball softball field. I think, Josh, you came with a proposal. It was going to be somewhere around like $12 million to do the whole facility. Don't remember what the exact price was on it, but through the same process that we're going through for this facility, it went through phases of cutting it back to where it was a fraction of what was originally estimated. And we can all see the benefits of that, and it's worked out great. I think we've learned from our experiences how we've done things, and this is how it's been done in the past to be successful. I've been part of the same conversation you alluded to that was in here, where we invited whoever would want to come to provide their input on how we would do this. And those questions were asked, like, what do you put in there? What do you need to be successful? And where do you stay? Like, what's a price? Where's a number that everyone feels comfortable with spending? And I think that that's all been touched on, and that's what all these decisions have been based upon.
Well, to that point, though, and maybe I'm wrong here, so somebody correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm happy to be wrong. So when Dr. Glassman, you said $2 million kind of ballpark estimate to finish this, and I was at that meeting too, found out the day before that day, and came to that meeting with the coaches and the athletic directors. But have we ever kind of sat down as a group or had people say, and that $2 million is $300K here, $500K here, we think it's about $400K here, this is a big expense here. I've not seen that, maybe somebody else has. That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'm probably not in a position to even judge whether or not any of that's right or wrong. But to me, that exercise seems to have value, at least in my mind it does.
Sure.
To sit and say, here's where these numbers come up. they build up from something.
Mhm.
There are high-ticket items when you go do a renovation of your home. There's certain things you're going to spend money on.
Yeah.
If you're going to kitchen, you're going to put a bunch of money in. If you're going to do bathrooms, you're going to put money in. And so the question is, what do you want to do? And then somebody's going to tell you how much it will cost. And to your point, you can have a champagne taste and a beer budget, or you can have beer taste and champagne budget. But like, you can start looking at where you're going to spend your money.
Mhm.
And so that's all I'm asking. And again, if that's a stark departure from what we've historically done, I'm here to be rogue. But I just think from a peace of mind standpoint, we're talking about spending a lot of money. And ultimately, I think it's great to get inputs from people
Mhm.
and say, what do we really want this to be? And at the end of the day, we should have a pretty narrow, based on needs, we should have a relatively narrow field, at least in my mind, on what that's going to cost to go do. And again, I think we're going to get there. But that would just be helpful to me.
So I've had multiple conversations like what you're talking about. That's what I do.
Right.
With the district. I sit with the engineers, I sit with the architects, I pull in stakeholders. I have all those. We build out the facility. We go through renovations. We change layouts. We change the building location by 20 feet one way or another, looking at Tyson, just to make sure we can get a lift truck in between this facility and our regular event stadium if we ever need to change the lights on the stadium. Making sure that we have the right amount of area to have a shot put and discus throw area, because this is going to be taking up where our current shot put and discus is, and where do we relocate to that? Talking with the coaches over and over, what kind of finishes do you want? Do you want an 18-inch wide locker, or do you want a 24-inch or a 26-inch wide locker? Do you want the locker where you're seated inside the locker, or do you want a chair seated outside, seating on the outside of the locker facing your area? Do you want it lockable? Do you want it just one portion of the locker lockable?
And I don't question that, Josh. And again, I guess I look at this though and say, you've done the work. And so to me, this is like a teacher. It is like a teacher saying, you have the answer. You've answered the math question. You have the answer. I just want to see you show the work for a second. Because you might have the perfect right answer. Like, I'm not questioning whether you got the right answer. And if you've already done the work, like, to me, like, I just think it's helpful to show it. And not that level of granularity. Again, you're talking on stakeholders. I think it's great. But as an oversight board person, at the end of the day, like, my choices are to either say, yeah, I just totally trust you. You're good. I blindly trust you. I'm going to vote yes. Or to say, hey, I have a sense of this, that, hey, yeah, from what I've seen, this seems totally reasonable, and I agree with it. And I would way rather be in the B category than the A, and that's not because I don't trust you. But I think as a board member, that's my obligation.
So we have to be very careful putting estimates out there, because then it will not be a competitive bid process.
And then I wouldn't do it publicly. I'd figure out a way we can do it in private session.
So have you sat down and had a conversation with him in private about this? I mean, you're bringing it up in an open session.
Okay.
So my question is, if you're really that interested and you're not going with their $1.5 or $2 million additional estimate, then go have a conversation with them. Don't throw it out in open.
That's fair. That's fair.
I mean, he'll show you any information you want. I mean, I've had a conversation with Neil, and I have a rough idea of what it's going to cost. And but
right, that's a fair point.
I just keep going back to something Casey has just drilled right into my tiny little head, and he says, don't just do something, stand there.
Don't do something what?
Don't just do something, stand there. And that's what I feel like we're doing. I feel like we're just doing something. Because the motion is to do this now because we already passed it, but we still don't have something that we can tell the public, this is the amount that we anticipate this costing to be a useful. We have a lot of numbers thrown out. We have a lot of things to consider, and I understand that. But so that's where I'm at, and I feel like a broken record because I keep saying my problem is not the finished product. My problem is our process. And yet again, that's what I'm saying. My problem here is the process with this. Give us a real number. And so I'm not going to do something. I'm going to stand here.
I mean, so earlier you said they did a really good job of estimating about how much
they did.
It was going to cost. They bid it out and it came in under that.
Uh-huh.
So based on what he said earlier, he's giving you a ballpark figure. What is keeping you from accepting that as
well? The figures we've gotten, because the figures we've gotten tonight have been The first one was anywhere from 500,000 to 25 million, which I realized was the
And I-
ridiculous thing. Yeah, and I realized that.
That was tongue in cheek.
And I realized that, absolutely. I understand that.
100 or 1.5 to 2.
But then we talked about 3 million, and so and how we whittled that down, and I believe all of that. But let's put it out there, and stop making it.
It's out there now.
Do we have a maximum number? A number that we would feel comfortable with spending total on this facility?
Where I would feel comfortable at is probably coming back in around.
But here again, we're gonna throw a number out
Yeah.
there, and it's gonna,
Yeah,
every contractor in the country is
gonna
gonna
look at
say,
it and say,
there
thanks
is.
for just writing a check to me.
Then don't do that, again.
So, I mean,
But
we
we're
just
hung
left.
up on this whole,
But we talk out of both sides of our mouth, Kyle. When you say go talk to them, have a conversation, we also say don't just go task people. Don't go talk to the administrative staff with the staff members that are your people asking for things as the individual board member. We've had that conversation.
That is true, but the thing is, like, if I have a question, then I can go to the superintendent, and then if it pertains to Josh, that can give me the best answer, then he would pull Josh and say, Matt, let's have a meeting with Josh.
We welcome that.
So it wouldn't be
Especially
me
for clarity.
necessarily calling Josh on his cell phone like that conversation had, or calling a principal on their cell phone. I would probably go through the chain of command where I would go to the superintendent to then set up that arrangement to get more details on things I have questions about.
That's fair. I'll do that in the future.
And I think you do that anyway, but maybe it just wasn't done in this case. What's fun is we have 2 more after this one. Anyone have anything else to add on this motion? Motion on the floor is to authorize Brock Miller Construction, Inc. as CMAR to negotiate a contract on behalf of the board with Raider Mechanical, Inc. for plumbing and site utilities on the CHS athletic facility at a cost not to exceed $125,000. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
The motion carries. Next, motion to consider is to authorize the superintendent or his designee to negotiate a contract on behalf of the board with Brockmeyer Construction, Inc. for general trades at a cost of $2,107,990 plus alternate 3, which was the supermarket columns, at a cost of $2,600 on the CHS athletic facility at a total cost not to exceed $2,110,590. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Discussion. I have a question. As far as the supermarket columns being at a cost of $2,600, that's total cost for?
Total.
How many columns approximately are there?
Let me pull up that drawing. I think.
So that number divided by the number of columns is the price increase?
It's less steel.
Hmm?
It's less steel, but different shape. Takes more work to make them, but it's less steel, so the net cost changes that much.
No, it's obviously not much. That's
Yeah.
why I was kind of questioning
Yeah.
how many there were.
I mean, I bet it's $50 a column.
Something.
Yeah, I mean, I bet it's not much.
I was just curious because it's not a very high number for.
I think there's
Just for the cost benefit, it seems like not much money.
Oh, gosh, yeah. Like I said, we're building a building right now, and it's, yeah, this is
No,
this is
I
a
was
good deal.
shocked when it came in.
This is
Yeah.
a tremendously good deal.
It wouldn't have been surprised if it was that much per column. That's why I asked.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
That wasn't the ad.
Less steel.
Yeah.
Just a little more cutting.
Any other questions on this motion? The motion on the floor is authorize the superintendent or his designee to negotiate a contract on behalf of the board with Brockmeyer Construction, Inc. for general trades at a cost of $2,107,990 plus alternate 3 at a cost of $2,600 on the CHS athletic facility at a total cost not to exceed $2,110,590. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
The motion carries. Next, and last, we have
18, not to interrupt, Mr. Woodward, it's 18 columns.
18 columns. Thank you. Next, motion to be considered is to authorize Brockmiller Construction, Inc. as CMAR to negotiate a contract on behalf of the board with Cotner Electric for electrical work on the CHS athletic facility at a cost not to exceed $38,851. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Discussion about this. You said earlier about, well, there'll probably be more electrical work to be done in the second phase due to the fact
Absolutely.
that.
I mean, you have light switches, you actually have the lights.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we're looking at right now, it's a moving target, is Missouri's just come out with another round of high efficiency lighting grants.
And I'm
So we're
taking
trying to
advantage of that too.
factor that in as well too.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of times as a facility, you can purchase LED lighting for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah.
Literally, you know, maybe 25 cents on the dollar, 20 cents on the dollar. Looking at light switches, you know, if we've been doing that district-wide for years now. If you all recall, probably most of us, when we used to go into a gymnasium or a big building, it would take 10 minutes for the lights to turn on.
Mhm.
Now it's, you know, instantaneous.
Yep.
So.
Major benefits to that.
Yes.
Mhm. Any other questions on the motion? All right. The motion on the floor is to authorize Brockmiller Construction, Inc. as CMAR to negotiate a contract on behalf of the board with Cotner Electric for electrical work on CHS athletic facility at a cost not to exceed $38,851. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries. We're not done yet because I have a feeling with the last thing we have information proposals from the board. Any board members have anything else?
I have a question for Josh. So do we
Yes,
have,
sir.
do we have an official timeline that we're looking at having this facility up and running? As far, if everything went through perfectly after budgeting out for this coming year, because obviously we'll go through the rest of this year for budget, next year's budget, and if we're
So ideally, what we would like to do in a perfect world, if everything lines up and proposals are passed and whatnot, we're looking at this winter.
Next winter?
This winter.
Oh,
So,
the end of this year?
end of this year, beginning of, into December, January. Now, I say that, and there may be some, you know, 90-degree PVC plumbing elbows are now on a worldwide shortage, you know, and everything is in there except the microchip to run the truck, you know, I mean, who knows? But barring any of that type of event, we'd be looking at around December or January, potentially.
So under a year.
Yes.
Well, we have an upcoming election, so there's always a chance that there's a few of us. This could be our last board meeting, so I just wanted to take the opportunity and say how much I've enjoyed serving on this board these last 6 years with present board members and past board members. And I happen to get elected the same year that Dr. Glass got hired. It's been a wonderful 6 years serving with you.
Yes, sir.
So hopefully I'm back, but good luck to all the candidates. And I know we have another one in the room, so good luck to Ms. Schwartz as well. So April 4th.
Yeah, go vote. Same. Been a fun 3 years for me though, so been a wonderful blessing. So a lot of fun. So get out. Yeah. I did want to toss it. I got to go do the interviews over the VOTEC. Sorry, I'll call it the VOTEC forever. The CTC, and it was fantastic. The kids, like, there were several of them I wanted to just hire and take back to the plant with us. So that was an awesome deal. I've been doing it over there for for years and years, and every year it's so cool to see. I mean, these mature high school kids. I mean, I get websites from them, like pre-work for the interview. They're like, here's my website, here's my portfolio, here's all the stuff. It's like, man, these are high school kids, and they present themselves much better than the majority of adults I interact with on a daily basis. And just well-spoken, it was really neat. So it's a cool experience. If ever gets a chance to go interview over there, it's a lot of fun. So it's cool. And Ms. Sternberger did a great job. You guys ran her off.
That's a big loss for us.
Yeah.
I got a text message from a parent this month, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. It said, this junior high choir teacher, they were talking about Mr. Scholl, is so good. He's teaching the whole package, music, academic, social, and emotional. And I just thought, how great that is to get something like that from a parent, just out of the blue one night. Hey, this teacher's doing a great job with the whole child.
Indeed. And I have something
Go
to
ahead.
finish.
I was just going to ask if anyone wants to say
So it kind
something.
of goes in line with Dr. Binion's presentation on media, libraries in particular. So I was listening to the radio and I happened to hear Ms. Schwartz interview with Fawn Riggin, and she was talking about a book that she had issues with. So she gave the title, and I immediately picked up the phone and called our library and wanted to find out if we had the book on our shelves. And we did have one copy. In fact, I went and checked out and read the book. But it kind of sparked a conversation that I wanted to have with the board as far as we have a policy in place, KLB. I don't know if everyone's had an opportunity to read it, but it's public questions, comments, or concerns regarding district instructional, media, or library materials. And it lays out very, very clearly on the process if you have an issue with any materials, whether it's in a classroom or on a library shelf or whatever, the process to go through having either the book reviewed or just to have a conversation about those materials. So what I took upon myself to do was I printed the form, I filled it out, had a conversation with Mr. Cato on a couple of different occasions. I would agree with Ms. Schwartz on a couple of the subject pages are a little disturbing when you're reading them from a situation, language, explicitness side, but overall I think the book has some merit. If no one's read it, it's called What Girls Are Made Of, and the author wrote it because of experiences she had as a 16-year-old girl, and she's trying to convey those experiences to others that may have gone through the same types of things. Some of the language is a little rough, but I think what she was trying to do served a good purpose. Anyway, so I had a conversation with Mr. Cato on how books like this get on our shelves. They go through a process of, so for one thing, this was an award-winning book. It was a American Literature Association finalist. So they go off of that list. They do reviews, searches online to find out if there's any things that puts up red flags for them. This book didn't have any, but after he read it, he said there might be an opportunity to put additional review type things in a library so that somebody wouldn't come across this book and think it's a feel-good love story, because there are some really dark things in this book. It's not a book that a teenage girl would read and then sit over in the corner and giggle with her friends about. Anyway, so the book came out in 2017. It's been checked out 10 times. Since 2017, the last time it was checked out was 2020. So he said the book was probably going to be removed from the shelf within the next year or two just because no one's interested in it. But anyway, so I filled out the form. Going to have the book reviewed. Ms. Scheller, she puts a committee together with, I'm assuming Mr. Beck's going to be on because he's part of curriculum and education on that level. No, actually, you're elementary, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes, so you'll be on the committee. Ms. Scheller, a couple of teachers, I think they said maybe parent and student if they choose. Anyway, I've started the process of having the book reviewed and see where the committee goes from there. But anyway, I just want to make people aware that if they hear of materials that are in the classroom, whether it's elementary, middle school, high school, whatever, there is a process in place that people can fill out a form and go through a process of having materials removed that they feel are inappropriate for those particular age groups. I will tell you that this book is available like I said, there's one copy in our library, except I've had it for the last month. There's a copy at the public library. There's a copy in Jackson's library. I think they have it on ebook. So there are other copies in the area. It's not solely just in our schools. So anyway, I just wanted to bring this up to you guys and let you know that. And Mr. Cato was very informed on how books are chosen. In fact, when I went by and spoke with him today, he wasn't in his office because he was returning a book that they had just received at the library, and upon review there was inappropriate materials, and he was sending back to Amazon. So that's why he wasn't there when I first went by. So they do review books on a regular basis, and they take our students' safety very seriously on what they're reading and what they have available to them. But yet they still have an obligation to make thought-provocative materials available to students too.
So Kyle, did you fill out that form because you had concerns? Is that why you filled out the form, or I'm just trying to figure out what the form is?
So the form is just basically starting the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of topics in there. As a father of a couple of daughters, that I would have a difficult time trying to have that discussion with them.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, it's a 200-page book, and that's probably 4 or 5 pages of the whole book. Take those pages out, it's a really good book for somebody that might be struggling with a lot of things that are talked about in there. And she's, in fact, at the end of the book, she's got the author's notes, and she tells exactly why she wrote the book and what she was trying to do. And actually, take out the explicit part, the most disturbing part in there was she was working in a kill shelter, humane society, and some kids had brutally harmed an animal. And that was tough to read.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I just wondered what the form was. I was trying to figure out. You know,
No,
okay.
it's-
Sorry,
Yes,
I'm still working my way through the policy.
The policy's KLB, and then they have KLB.
Why there's a good search mechanism.
Yeah.
Administrative procedures. So this talks, how the process goes about who you give the form to initially. I was going to give it to Ms. Scheller, but she had to leave, so I'll get it to her tomorrow. But so I'll give her the book and the form, and I'll start the process. Yeah, it's all our policies.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's all I had.
Super interesting. How did Mr. Cato have a sense of, like you mentioned, the stuff gets reviewed, obviously when it comes in, it seems like, based on what he said. Right. But how often kind of people do submit something like what you're submitting? Like
He's only been there a couple of years.
I guess it's not very often.
He's never had anybody submit this form, and I talked to some of the other people that's working in the library, and they've never had anyone challenge anything. And they've got 19,000 books on the shelf, so as Mr. Cato said, this book hadn't been checked out in 3 years, and his assumption would probably within the next 2 years, just because of shelf space.
Right.
Books get pulled and gotten rid of.
Unless this conversation stems, people will be more curious about what the book's about.
Well, and that's, that was
If books get put on the list, like that book's been put on the list, it could also entice people to even want to look into that book even more.
Well, I part of the conversation today was the book a section that somebody would have to go look in the catalog, find out where it's located, have a conversation with somebody to check it out.
Make it a little harder.
But his thing is, there's another policy that says you can't put up barriers to keep people away from materials. So you're either going to have it in the library or not going to have it in the library. Because my thought was, well, someone may not check it out, but they might be just browsing through the shelves and pull it off.
Know what it is.
Yeah, it's like, I probably didn't want to read that. But again, it's not 50 Shades of Grey book.
Right.
It is not something that a teenage boy or girl would pull shelf and read thinking they're going to have a good time, because it is not. But it's very, it's very thought-provoking too. It put you inside of a troubled 16-year-old teenage mind.
Our Follett system also has that categorizing all of those tech books also has a screening process too.
Well,
I don't know if he talked to you about that a
Yeah,
little
originally
bit.
this book was in the romance section.
Oh.
And he was like, no, that is not where it should be. It is
Right.
young adult fictional literature. And so they immediately changed that, and he put some additional notes in the catalog system for the computers.
Once they look it up, they can look up books and then they get a little bit of description.
Sure. Preview.
Yeah.
May I have a comment about that? Would
Probably.
you mind? It's not an insult in any way. I wanted to just thank you for doing that process.
You're fine. No.
I just wanted to say thank you.
You're welcome.
And I read sections of that book to my husband. We've been married 34 years, and he asked me to stop.
I understand. Thank you for the comments.
Does anyone else have anything else to add? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.